Chapter 6 Raven. She was already in his workspace when he got back. Not waiting, that was the first thing he noticed. Waiting implied a posture of anticipation, a quality of directed attention toward the door. She wasn't doing that. She was standing at his window looking at the three identical trees in their triangular formation with the expression of someone genuinely interested in what they were looking at, which, given what he knew about the trees, suggested either a very generous nature or a very active interior life. She turned when he came in, not startled she'd heard him or registered him or whatever the equivalent was. She just turned, the way you turned when someone arrived in a room you were sharing. "Mr. Clover," she said. "You have me at a disadvantage," he said. He left the door open behind him, a habit, with unknown quantities in enclosed spaces, and crossed to his desk without urgency. "You know my name." "Everyone knows your name, you're the frozen detective." A pause. "It's a small city. 200,000 people. 200,000 people who have been talking to each other for centuries. Novelty travels fast." She said it without edge, just as information. He looked at her. He ran his standard inventory, the one he ran on everyone he met, the catalogue of details that added up to a person. Medium height. Dark hair pulled back with the specific carelessness of someone who had made a decision about it once and didn't revisit it. Dressed in the touring palette, grey, restrained, but wearing it with a looseness that the other residents didn't, as though the clothes were something she'd picked up rather than something she'd been organised into. Her face had the finished quality of all the uploads, but on her it sat differently, less like completion and more like, he searched for the word, composure. A face that had arrived at stillness through something rather than simply being still. Her eyes were the thing. They moved. Not with the considered deliberate movement of the other uploads he'd encountered, that half-beat delay between stimulus and response. They moved the way eyes moved when the brain behind them was actually working in real time, generating responses rather than locating them. "Sit down," he said. "I'm fine standing," she said pleasantly. "So am I," he said and sat, which made the point without making it a confrontation. She almost smiled, turned back to the window briefly, then came and sat in the chair across from him with an ease that was its own kind of statement, not compliance, just practicality. "You've been to the blocks," she said. "News travels fast. You smell like the cooking from Marin's market." She said it without apology. It's a specific smell, recognizable. "You know Marin's." "I know most people in the blocks." A pause, not as well as I'd like, but as well as the visits allowed. Clover put his elbows on the desk. "They know your name in there, the children say it when good things happen." Something moved across her face, there and gone, genuine and quick, the kind of response that didn't get located before it arrived. She stopped, started again more quietly. "They're good people." "They are," he said. "They're also scared. Someone told them the blocks were going to be demolished and they were going to be moved to a somewhere that nobody can specify." She looked at him steadily. "You knew about that," he said. "Yes. And Aldous was the architect of it." "Aldous drafted the policy, yes, pushed it through the council, had the resources and the authority to implement it." She said it the way Marin had described the wall, factually, without needing to perform the anger, because the anger was already so thoroughly known to her, it had become structural. The official position was that the blocks represented an inefficient use of prime civic space, and that the residents would be better served by a purpose-built facility outside the city proper. Outside the city. 40 kilometers outside, in what used to be farmland. "That's not relocation," Clover said, "that's removal." "Yes," she said, "it is." He looked at her. She looked back. She had the quality, rare in his experience, of someone who was genuinely comfortable being looked at, not because they had nothing to hide, but because they had decided that hiding wasn't the strategy they were interested in. "Why did you come here?" he asked. "Today to my workspace." "To introduce myself," she said, "before someone else introduced me." "Someone else would have introduced you as a suspect." "Yes. And you're introducing yourself as someone who would like you to understand the full picture before you decide what kind of investigation this is." She tilted her head slightly. "There's the version of this investigation where you find who killed Aldous and hand them to the council, and the council continues doing what the council was doing. And there's the version where you find who killed Aldous and understand why, and what you do with that is your own decision." She paused. I thought it was worth making sure you knew a second version existed. Clover was quiet for a moment. That's a very careful way of telling me something. I'm a very careful person. Are you? When it matters. He leaned back. You said you wanted me to understand the full picture. What's the part of the picture I'm missing? She was quiet for a moment, genuinely quiet, the quiet of someone choosing what to carry into a room and what to leave at the door. Come with me, she said. Tomorrow, let me show you touring from where I stand, the version that isn't on the official orientation route. She stood with that same practical ease. Then you can ask me whatever you want and I'll answer you honestly. Why tomorrow? Because today you've had enough, she said simply. He looked up at her. The composed face, the eyes that moved in real time, the looseness in the grey clothes. You're not afraid of me, he said. No. Most people are. Most people in an investigation, even the innocent ones, are afraid of the person asking the questions. I know, she said. She moved toward the door. I'm not most people. You're not any kind of people, he said, technically. She stopped at the door and turned back, and for the first time something complicated crossed her face, not pain exactly, but the neighbouring country. No, she said quietly, I suppose not. A pause, that's rather the problem, isn't it? He watched her. Is that why you went to the blocks, to remember what people were? She was still for a moment. In the corridor behind her, the sourceless light continued its sourceless work. I went to the blocks, she said, because Aldous was going to destroy them, and I needed to understand exactly what that meant before I decided what to do about it. She held his gaze for one beat, too. I understood, she said, eventually. Then she walked out of the doorway and down the corridor, and he listened to her footsteps, which, unlike every other set of footsteps he'd heard in touring, made sound. He sat with that for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and looked at the small piece of material he'd taken from the underside of Aldous's desk. The mark he hadn't mentioned, a single short line and a curve. He turned it in the light. The line and the curve, he now understood, were not the beginning of a letter or the end of one. They were the beginning of a name. Oh, asterisk. He put it back in his pocket. He looked at the 3 identical trees in their triangular formation, doing their careful impression of something that grew. She'd known he would find it, or she'd hoped he would. Either way, she'd left it there, not as a confession, not as a taunt. As a door. A door she'd left open specifically for someone who knew how to walk through doors quietly and with their eyes open. I was here, the mark said, and I think you're the right person to know it. He sat in the white workspace in the city of the permanent dead, and thought about a woman who missed being human so much, she crossed a wall twice a month to talk to people who still were. Tomorrow, he thought. He'd ask her everything tomorrow.